Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another post-game show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers fell 110 to 109 to drop to 34 and 23 on the season. They are now number 6 in the West by a full game behind number 5 Minnesota, who won and is now up to 36 and 23. So LA a couple of wins back in the standings from them. But a brutal loss tonight, a heartbreaking loss. The Lakers have not had many crunch time losses this season, only their third of the season. They have the best crunch time record in the NBA. This felt like a game. We were talking about it, the media group after the game. This felt like a game from last season or a couple seasons ago, 3 seasons ago. Like, the Lakers have had a lot of heartbreaking losses at home. You think about actually the Maxi Kleba game where he hit the game winner, Andrew Nembhard. There was the Franz Wagner game a couple seasons ago from Orlando that sent the Lakers season sideways momentarily. So they've had several of these types of games. This was not a buzzer beater from an opponent. And you know, the Lakers actually ended up missing a game-winning attempt, but just a comedy of errors down the stretch. JJ inexplicably going with the OG starters who have been terrible together all season and lost their minutes in the fourth quarter. Unsurprisingly, Luka passing up the final shot and handing LeBron a grenade. Austin not boxing out Anthony Black on the possession that ended up, getting the ball gets tipped to Wendell Carter in this fray in the paint, and Wendell Carter gets the game sealing layup. LeBron missed the free throw late. The Lakers had, on the Bane 3, that there was several guys screwed up their defensive assignments. So part of the reason why I went went live a little bit later was because I actually went back and rewatched parts of this game, because there was a lot to like from this game. There was also a lot to not like from this game. And we are going to touch on that in Buha's big picture. But shout out to the chat. Shout out to the late night gang. Appreciate everybody who's tuning in. I know Laker fans are going through it right now, and understandably so. I had one person I knew who was at the game who said after this they were going to walk into traffic. Then I had another person text me that they were done with this team and were going to be handed their fandom card. I don't know if they meant permanently or just for the season, but Laker fans are upset, and this was a brutal loss. This was not one of the, I wouldn't say one of the worst losses of the season, just from a perspective of, like, they've had several blowouts in high stakes, big games that I think for me have been maybe a little bit, like, I think the Boston loss was worse than this one. However, from like they should have won this game, undeniably, this is arguably the worst loss of the season from like that perspective of LA had double-digit leads in the first half. In the second half, they should, like, Orlando was down Franz Wagner, who's been their best player this season, better than Paolo. Also down Jalen Suggs, their best perimeter defender. So down a couple starters. And this is a team that cannot shoot. I mean, you saw the final, they shot 24% on threes, only made 7 threes. To win a basketball game in which you only make 7 threes is it's kind of crazy. But just a tough loss for the Lakers in what could have been, I would have been like a decent win just based on how the game went. If they pulled it out, I would have said a decent win, but definitely a tough loss with just how the game went overall. But for Buha's big picture, I want to pivot, and I'm going to include the game within this, but I do want to look at the Lakers 4-4 homestand, because the Lakers just wrapped up their longest homestand of the season, and they only went 4-4. And I would say that was pretty disappointing. I think looking at the caliber of opponents, it's a little bit more justifiable, but the Lakers have not they've sneakily not been a good home team this season. They've been a much better road team than home team. I mean, they have straight up a better record on the road than at home now, but just 16-12 at home, which is the worst record among the top 6 in the West. Actually, worst record among the top 8 in the West at home, and then 18-11 on the road, which is actually looks like the 4th best record among the top, just in the West period. Among teams like on the road. So been a much better team on the road than at home, which is counterintuitive. You know, typically you are better at home, especially for good teams, but they've had some really rough losses over the stretch. And if we look at it, I mean, I would say, so you kind of split it into pre All-Star break and post All-Star break. So pre All-Star break, they have the Philly game in which Luka gets injured and ends up exiting that one early. They pull that one out. They have the terrible first quarter and the shaky first half. They end up pulling away in the second half. And despite the comeback attempt from Philly and the VJ Edgecombe 3, they end up pulling that one out. Then they have, I would say, like an underwhelming win against Golden State based on no Steph Curry and just how close that, like, the Lakers were in control of that one in the fourth quarter, but it still was a little bit closer than it probably should have been. But they take care of Golden State, start the homestand out 2-0. Then they lose to OKC and San Antonio. The San Antonio game, they rest everybody. OKC, they're down Luka. On the OKC side, they're down SGA and AJ Mitchell. And it was not I would not say it was like there was no moral victory to it, but it was like a nice loss. I said at the time, and I stand by it, that it was their best loss of the season. Like, they were competitive with OKC into crunch time. They got out executed by OKC in crunch time. So this has been a couple games here on this homestand where they've lost in the clutch and just been out executed by just an opponent who was more prepared and tougher and more physical on that night. But there was a lot to like, I thought, from the OKC game. Like, certainly some things to learn from, but definitely a better performance from LA compared to the prior OKC meeting when that game was over by the late first quarter. I mean, it was just done. Then the San Antonio game, they rest everybody. Wemby could have gone for 70 if he wanted to in the second half, but didn't. Then right before the break, final game, they have the Dallas game, which is looking a little shaky at times. And Dallas had a couple 12-0 runs, and like it was competitive into the third quarter. Then LA put them away and won that game by 20. Nice game to cap off the first 5 games of the homestand. Come out of the All-Star break with a Clippers game that went down to the wire. Nick Batum has a chance to tie the game on a botched inbounds possession and misses the open 3. Lakers come out on top on that one. Then Boston, competitive game for the first 20 minutes and even somewhat into the third quarter, but midway through the third quarter, it's clear Boston's going to win the game. They end up blowing the Lakers out by 22. And to me, that was probably the low point of the season, where it just felt like the Lakers, any confidence or hope I had in this group being able to put it together against elite competition, it's on life support right now. And then you have a game like tonight where I thought there's so many little storylines from this game. I thought the big storyline from this game was just how physically overwhelmed the Lakers were. And there are not many teams, there are some teams, we've seen Houston push the Lakers around. We saw Detroit push the Lakers around, San Antonio, OKC, in various forms of whether it's on the perimeter or the interior. Orlando just bullied the Lakers tonight. I don't really know how else to put it. Wendell Carter and Paolo Banchero just straight up kicked the Lakers front court's ass consistently. You could throw Mo Wagner in there. Jonathan Isaac had his moments. But this was like the Lakers just looked small, and they looked not as tough, not as physical. certainly not as strong or athletic as Orlando. I thought that was the story of the game. Like, yes, there was a calamity. Crunch time was a calamity for LA. There was a comedy of errors. They had several things go against them, several self-inflicted wounds. But to me, the story of the game was Orlando took 11 more shots than the Lakers. They won the possession battle. They were +5 in offensive rebounds. They were -2 in turnovers. And in a game that was decided by 1 point, Orlando had 11 more opportunities. And that's not factoring in free throws. LA was +5 at the free throw line. So even if you say take away like 2 or 3 possessions there, it's still, I think JJ said after the game, they calculated it was +8. And in a game this close that came down to the literal final seconds, giving your opponent 8 more field goal attempts to me was the difference, because Orlando, I mean, their offense was in the mud for a lot of this game. They are not a good offensive team. As I mentioned, they were without 2 of their, I would say, 4 best players, at worst 5 best, but I think 2 of their 4 best players, in my opinion, their best players, certainly at least this season in Franz. So they're shorthanded and also missing a couple big, like those guys are good defenders, but they're also really big offensive pieces for them. So like this was a game that when you look at, like, the Lakers dominated the bench points. The Lakers don't often dominate bench points, but like you got to the Orlando bench and you just got nothing offensively from that group. It was entirely the starters, and specifically, Paolo had 36, Wendell Carter had 20, Desmond Bane had 22, Tristan da Silva, fun fact, a guy the Lakers were really high on and were considering had Dalton connect and not slip to them. That's a sliding doors moment. He would look great on this Lakers team, and still don't understand why they have prioritized combo guards and backcourt players over big wings and forwards when they have needed an influx of athleticism and size and toughness and defense. And that's all the things that Tristan da Silva does. But I digress. I thought tonight the story was like, there are not many teams in the league that can push the Lakers around to this extent. Orlando might be the best equipped because they're just a giant team. I mean, they had several iterations of lineups where they had 4 guys 6'9" and above out there. And like, that's just, they have a plethora of wingspans and guys who are just incredible athletes and strong and whatnot. So that was their advantage tonight. And I thought the Lakers, some guys had some nice moments against that. I thought DA had a nice bounce back game. I will touch on him during the notable performers section. But like overall, you look at it outside of Luka, Ayton, and LeBron, no one had more than 3 rebounds, and that was Maxi Kleber in 11 minutes with no Jaxsn Hayes. So I thought Luka, we know Luka, DA, and LeBron are 3 of their 4 best rebounders. I would throw Vando in that mix. He only played 12 minutes tonight, which continues with the trend of Vando is on the outskirts of the rotation, or at least like not as entrenched as Rui and Jake and Luke. He's more the 9th man right now. And then I think when Jackson's back, he's more the 10th man. But they just like, I thought tonight it was like the Lakers just got completely overwhelmed physically. And there are things within that of Luka did not have a good offensive performance. His 5th worst shooting performance of the season, 8 for 24, just 2 for 10 on threes. Austin, did not score in the first half, went 0 for 5, got into a nice rhythm in the third quarter, led a 9-0 run with 7 points and an assist, and then had a couple big plays in the fourth. But like, he was underwhelming again against another tough, physical, athletic opponent. LeBron had the hot start, scored 10 of the Lakers' first 16 points, but then they went away from him. He finished with 21 on just 8 for 13 shooting. He had 5 turnovers, and he had been taking care of the ball better lately, and this was not one of those performances from him. And then DA had the big offensive performance, but outside of that, like, Rui hit a couple shots in the second, had the big 3 in the fourth, but then airballed the corner 3, and I thought had a rough defensive performance. And like, otherwise, like, Luke had some nice cuts and off-ball actions for attacking off the dribble, but like, they just once again, like, Marcus had 3 points, Maxi didn't score, Vando had 2, Jake hit the big three late, but otherwise was quiet. Like they just the supporting cast has been pretty underwhelming here over these last couple of games. And then the stars have just not collectively been good enough. Once again, 61 points from the big three. The shooting overall was 22 of 53. It's actually the exact same shooting percentage as they shot against Boston. So that was 41.5%. That's crazy that it was the exact same number, but that's just not good enough. I mean, again, back-to-back games, 61 points on 41.5% shooting from the big three. You're not going to beat good team. And like Orlando has obviously been disappointing this season. I would call them I think they're a good team. They're not in the top 10. And I said after the Celtics game, I only care about the Lakers results against top 10 teams in terms of like really swaying me on how I feel about them. This does just confirm some of my concerns with this group of not being able to handle, like Orlando's more in that like Detroit, Houston, Minnesota to a degree of just like, we have so much size, we're going to overwhelm you, we're going to get a bunch of offensive rebounds, we're going to dominate the paint. And again, tonight, Lakers often are competitive in the paint battle or win it. And tonight they were -8 in the paint, and they made up for that with some of their scoring in the second half. Like that was a gap that was often double digits for a lot of the game until like they did a better job walling off the paint as the game progressed. But then Orlando started hitting a bunch of jumpers. So to recap this 4-4 homestand, I mean, it's kind of what we've come to expect with the Lakers in terms of you could quibble how you're ranking these 8 opponents that they had in terms of how you would rank Philly versus the Clippers versus the Magic. But the Lakers lost to the 3 best teams they played, OKC, San Antonio, Boston. Those are the only 3 top 10 teams they played, the only 3, I would say, real contenders they played. San Antonio game, you give a pass because of who played, and like they just literally didn't have their starting group. So that one I put to the side a bit. But the OKC game, both teams were without their MVP candidate. Lakers lost that one. Boston game, they got absolutely throttled, and that was an embarrassing second half performance from them. So it continues to feel like Groundhog's Day with this group, where the 3 wins, or 3 of their 4 wins, were by 6 points or less against Philly, Golden State, and the Clippers. They had the 1 blowout win against Dallas, who is tanking and is one of the worst teams in the league right now without Cooper Flagg. So it just continues to be like the Lakers win close games against good to bad. It's range, but like good and below competition. They win in close games a lot, and then great and above, they often are blown out. The OKC game was actually their closest loss to a top 10 team in the league, whether by record or point differential, but it was by 9. So they barely missed the double-digit cutoff. All their other losses to the top 10 teams in the league by point differential or record have been by double figures. So just, I would say a disappointing and a bit of a deflating homestand for LA, right? Like you never... on the road, with a road trip, you say 500 or better is a win, right? Like going 4-4 on an 8-game road trip, that's a win. LA went 5-3 on their Grammy trip. Technically, they lost to the 3 best teams they played. They lost all those games by double figures. So like that part was disappointing. But overall, you look at a road trip, you go above 500 or even 500. That's great. Homestand, this should have probably been ideally a 6-2 homestand for LA, and the fact at least 5-3, and the fact that they went 4-4, this just continues this malaise of 15-16 in their past 31 games, and they just have this large stretch. And I guess one thing at LA's defense is you look at the rest of the West. Denver's coming off of a stretch of basically 500 basketball over a similar period. Houston's been disappointing lately. Minnesota has been scattershot all season. Phoenix is now on the decline with no Booker and Brooks. So the Lakers are still in the mix there. They're still in the hunt. I would argue that those teams, their biometrics are much more encouraging in terms of all those teams are at least in the top 10. But with the, like, putting Phoenix aside, I don't really put Phoenix in this mix, but looking at Minnesota, Houston, and Denver, they're all top 10 in at least one side of the ball. Minnesota's right there on both sides. They all have much better point differentials in that ratings. They all have far fewer double-digit losses. They all have better records against above 500 competition. So the Lakers are still, like, they're in the mix, but I would say right now, like, them being sixth in the West feels appropriate with the season they've had up to this point, and we'll see how the bracket shakes out. And again, like, they could easily finish third in the West. I just think with how things are trending right now, that's not how it's looking. But a lot of this is going to come down to matchups and health and momentum. But the Lakers have continued to just be this team that, again, for me, the number I calculated in, I think there's a clear, like, delineation. They're playing an opponent who wins 60% of their games or more. They are 4-11 this season. If they are playing anybody else, they are 30-12. So that just shows you, like, again, that there's a delineation between the caliber of opponent that the Lakers have beaten and can beat. And right now there's a big gap between the upper echelon. They just have not fared well and have fared much worse than everybody else. It's just the reality of the situation right now. I did want to touch on the crunch time situation, because I thought I went back, and to me, like, again, just several errors that I think the Lakers would want to have back. So you have the Bane 3 where Paolo's dribbling the ball down, and Luka, they had Luka on Paolo, and I put this the least on Luka of the three guys who made mistakes, but, like, Luka just kind of passes him off to DA and doesn't even really fight to get around the screen. Now, part of that is on just the Lakers defense and their system. But I would have liked to maybe have seen, especially in that context, like, trying to get around the screen and sort of fight it. But he passes him off to DA, who is in a deep drop when Paolo's has been cooking the Lakers in the post and with a bevy of mid-range jumpers. DA is way too late at his pickup point against the drop, and he does recover nicely, but he lets Paolo get so deep into the paint that it forces both Austin, who's the low man, and LeBron to shift over toward Paolo, and LeBron overhelps. AR is the low man. So you have Anthony Black in the corner and Desmond Bane on the weak side corner. Anthony Black, Desmond Bane, weak side wing. That is Austin's help assignment, especially with the context of one guy's Desmond Bane, one guy's Anthony Black, who has a broken jumper, and so that's Austin's rotation. LeBron rotates as well, and then that allows Paolo to survey the floor quickly, spray it out to Desmond Bane. LeBron actually, like, rotates well out of that, but Desmond Bane has enough time to catch, shoot. By the time LeBron gets there, it's too late. That's a huge play. Next possession is the Rui miss, ends up going out of bounds. Lakers get the back cut for LeBron, and beautiful ATO. He gets the dunk. Then the final possession, once again, they switch DA onto Paolo. Good contest and good job tracking Paolo from DA. No one puts a body on anyone, though. Like, I watched that possession 3 times in a row. Not one person turns and makes contact. The closest is Luka, kind of, with Wendell Carter in the vicinity. But Austin completely loses Anthony Black, who just zooms by him, gets the offensive rebound. Austin comes from behind and strips him, but pokes the ball loose, and it flies through multiple people to Wendell Carter, who then goes up for the layup over Luka. Probably should have been an and one. There was a lot of contact on that layup, and that is the game. Then on the final play, I know people were like, JJ has done this before, where he runs these like NFL style routes with his sideline out of bounds plays in late late game situations, and I thought, all things considered, like, it was a pretty good play, and it led to a good opportunity. Now, Luka hesitated for whatever reason. I mean, he said after the game that he felt he was too far. It rings a little hollow for me just because Luka took a couple deep threes in this game. Luka can take and make deep threes. Like, Luka has range out to 30 feet. We've seen Luka pull up from the Lakers logo in different situations and hit that shot. Maybe it was just a vantage point or whatever. Like, I don't know what happened on that play, but he obviously hesitated. And then that window closed and Orlando had all this length around him. All of a sudden he can't, take that shot, and then hands LeBron a grenade, and LeBron has to turn, throw that up, and it misses. So that I thought it was a good play. I thought Luka, he had a really rough shooting night. As I said, 8 for 24, and he started 0 for 3. Then he went 4 for 5, ended 4 for 8 at the end of the first quarter. So then, by some quick math there, 4 for 8, he went just 4 for 16 the rest of the game, but he hit some big shots. Remember, he hit the step back from the wing that ended up being a 2, not a 3, and then he hit that corner heave that was such a difficult shot. So, like, despite him not being in rhythm, he had hit a couple of big shots in the fourth quarter, and I don't know. I just don't know why he ended up not shooting that, because, I mean, you saw that there's a still from right when he catches the ball and right where they're at. Like, he's open. Now, it is a deep 3. I'm not going to deny that, but that is a shot Luka has taken before. It's a shot that Luka can make. And now, does it? I mean, he went 2 for 10 on threes, so does that go in with the shooting night he was having? I don't know, but Luka is a clutch player. Luka has made plenty of big shots, plenty of game-winning shots. So, we'll never know. But that said, though, let's move on to notable performers. And I think it's fair to start with Luka. So, I mean, I've already kind of touched on it, but 22 points, 9 rebounds, 15 assists, nearly had a triple-double, but just 8 for 24 from the floor, 2 for 10 on threes, 6 for 14 on twos. So a below-average 2-point shooting night, but, like, that one's a little bit, I think he missed a lot of good looks, and they're just a really good defensive team with a lot of length and strength on the perimeter. It's more so the threes for me tonight. Like, I've talked about it before with him, where if his shot's not falling, I think 8 is probably the ceiling on a night like this when he only makes a couple. But he goes 2 for 10, 4 for 9 at the free throw line. So it wasn't just, it was like, from 2, he was below average. From 3, he was below average. And from the free throw line, he was below average. Did take care of the ball. And I think lost in this, like, this has been the pile-on Luka week or couple weeks here, where you've had everyone coming out of the woodwork and just dumping on Luka and criticizing Luka. And it's been a rough couple of weeks for him. And this type of performance is certainly not going to quiet the noise or quell the doubters. But I thought what got lost in this game with Luka was, this was one of his best passing games of the season, and of course, 15 assists is high. It was, I don't think it was a season high, but it was close to a season high. But I thought, like, one thing that Zach Lowe said that I have agreed with to an extent with Luka has been, he's felt like at times the pendulum has swung too much in the shoot first side and more so passing as like a secondary, more so like if you take away my shot, now I will pass, rather than some of the, he used the term predatory passing that Luka has had in the past, going back to Dallas. And I think also had as well going back to last season. So I agree with that criticism to an extent. Like, I think Luka has had games and performances like that. And I thought this was one of those nights where he was feeding DA constantly with lobs and attacking mismatches and switches, really got DA involved. And also a lot of just like the skip passes. And he had the play to Austin early in the third quarter where he has a corner 3, he passes it up, kicks it back out to Austin, who then drills it, and that causes an Orlando timeout. So I thought his passing tonight was brilliant. It was just really the shot making, the finishing, the 3-point shooting, and the free throw shooting. Like, it was a bad one of his worst offensive performances from a scoring perspective of the season. It's on the short list, I would say, bottom 3 to 5, and he was just not good enough tonight. But I thought that sometimes in games, like I feel like a player will do something really positive that kind of gets lost in the loss, or like them doing other things subpar. And tonight I thought Luka's passing was just brilliant. LeBron, mentioned him, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 turnovers. You never want to have more turnovers than assists, especially as a primary ball handler. But really, if it, like, his jumper was falling tonight, 8 for 13, 2 for 6 on threes. So was 6 for 7 inside the arc, 3 for 4 on free throws. And just an odd game. Like, there's something with this game, and I'm looking at the possessions here. It was 99 possessions, so it wasn't like super slow. It felt like a very slow game in terms of just the overall possessions and opportunity. And LeBron only taking 13 shots, I think that's a little low. I would like to see him more in that like 15 to 17 shot range. I think part of that was because DA was so involved offensively, but and also, I mean, Luka took 24. That's a little bit on the high side, especially for an off night from him. So you maybe want to see that closer to 22. Austin at 16 on an off night for him. I think like it's a good general range for him, but he was also having an off night as well. So the Lakers need somebody to take some of these shots, right? And if you take away shots from someone, you have to reallocate them to other players. But it did feel like the big three. I mean, LeBron was the only player among the big three to shoot above 50%. So I thought he had an efficient night from that perspective. But the 3-point shot continues to not fall for him. I mean, with the big three, they were 6 for 21 on threes. So that plays a big part of that 22 for 53 shooting. And I thought he had a couple nice. I mean, he had a couple nice cuts, a couple big baskets in the fourth, but just was not. He's not been quite back to the level he was at in like December or January. Then DA. So bounce back performance for him, especially looking at the Boston game. 21 points, 14 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds, 8 for 11 shooting. I believe had 3 lobs, had a couple of entry or dump off passes for dunks, had a couple of nice post ups against Anthony Black in mismatch situations. So offensively, I would give DA an A off of this game. On the glass, I would probably give him a B, which is a little bit counterintuitive with the 14 total. But my big issue with DA tonight was I thought he got pushed around left and right by Wendell Carter and Mo Wagner and even Paolo. They attacked him in the drop, off the dribble, a ton, or in drop and or switching. And I just thought when he was out there, it was a layup line. And he also gave up. He had a big offensive rebound that he gave up to Mo Wagner with about like 5 minutes left. And I just thought, this is kind of one of those games where he put up the numbers, and I do think he made a big impact offensively, which is why I want to give him like an A offensively, but I would probably give him a C- or D+ defensively. I thought the defensive limitations tonight really cost the team. And it was not necessarily like he had the big rebounding total, but part of that was because Orlando could not make a shot. But he also was out there for a lot of the offensive rebounds, a lot of the points in the paint, some of the transition stuff. And I think he had a bad defensive performance tonight. AR, 18 points, 6 for 16 shooting. So 0 for 5 in the first half. He went 6 for 11 in the second half, had a much better second half, had, again, 7 points coming out of the half, coming directly out of the half, scored 7 points, had the lob to LeBron. Then fourth quarter hits the big 3 to tie it 90-90, also ends up with that and one. And, looks like that's a point where the Lakers are finally going to wrestle back the momentum of the game. Ends up not happening. Another one of these games where I thought, Anthony Black was on him, Desmond Bane was on him. They put Tristan da Silva a lot on him. I thought, against Jovan Carter, like that's a physical mismatch for him. But outside of that, it was just a lot of big, strong, long, athletic players. And another game where under 20 points, under 50% shooting, and like I would say a bad first half, good second half, but you still need more from him. And there's just no way around that. Marcus, I thought should have played a little bit more despite this was a big boy game from just you wanted as much size out there as possible, but Marcus 3 points, 1 for 2 shooting, I thought was fine defensively against Bane when he was matched up against him. I don't think Marcus was the problem out there, but for what it's worth, still led the team in plus minus. Lakers were +8 in his 23 minutes. Every other starter except for Luka was a minus. Then going to the bench, Jake LaRavia hits the big 3, but I thought he had a really tough time matching up with Paolo. It's not really his fault. Paolo's a beast. It had one of his best games of the season, but I thought he got whatever he wanted. Maxey had rebounded well in his stint. A couple stints, had a nice Gortat screen for Luka, but I mean he's not been the same player since that couple games he had earlier on the homestand. Rui, I thought hit a big 3 late, had some big shots throughout. I thought helped with the Lakers' momentum at times, but to play 26 minutes and not have a rebound, and I thought just he was a guy that they were able to drive by continually. Or there's a lot of times where the Lakers were going with big lineups or just odd matchups where it was far too much like Rui and LeBron having to track Desmond Bane around screens, which is just a walking mismatch, and I don't really understand that. Luke Kennard only played 15 minutes. This is one thing I'll quibble with. I thought yes, he's a defensive liability. Yes, teams are targeting him, and there was a war in the paint going on. But I thought his cutting and curling off of screens and attacking closeouts was awesome tonight. It continues to be awesome. Didn't take a 3, and this continues to be a thing where, between Rui and Luke Kennard, they attempted 5 threes. It was all from Rui, but you need to be generating 8 to 12 threes for those two guys, and the Lakers just have not been able to do that. And then Vando only played 12 minutes. I don't think it was a great couple of shifts from him, but this kind of felt like a Vando type matchup in terms of the size and physicality and whatnot. And he just, is not, again, I think it seems like JJ's sort of pushing him toward the back of the rotation. In terms of stat of the night, several things we could look at. I would say for me, it's funny because a lot of these are actually relatively close, but I think that, and actually ESPN's box score is different than the Lakers box score. Lakers have Orlando at +12 in field goal attempts. So we'll just say Orlando's possession advantage. I thought Orlando won the possession game, and you saw they outscored LA in points off turnovers. I mentioned already the offensive rebounds and turnovers in general, but points in the paint, they were +8. Second chance, which is related to a degree with the offensive rebounds and putbacks. Second chance points 15-8. Often those are 15-8, but they had 13 second chance opportunities because of the offensive rebounds. Lakers only had 5 second chance opportunities. And then fast break points. To my point that this was a slow game, there were 13 combined fast break points. Now, Orlando, it's kind of crazy the Lakers won this game with how poorly Orlando shot. They went 5 for 13 on second chance points, 4 for 12 in transition, 7 for 29 on threes, 17 of 23 at the free throw line. I don't know how the Lakers lost this game, but that speaks volumes. And then 3 takeaways before we get into the Q&A. Takeaway number 1, this one's going to be short, but not sweet. The Lakers were -3 in the 4 minutes that the OG starters played in the fourth quarter, and I don't get it. I look, if I think the offense was stuck in the mud, it's been stuck in the mud lately. So, and Rui did hit a 3, went 1 for 2 during that stretch there. So I get it to a degree, going with Luke Kennard. Okay, he's too small, too much of a defensive liability, even compared to Rui. Jake LaRavia was not in a rhythm offensively. Marcus didn't really get it going offensively, and was kind of just whatever tonight. I get why JJ went with Rui to an extent, but I just think we have enough of a sample size with that group of, I think, especially LeBron, Luka, and Rui together defensively. Like a lot of that was in zone, and it was either zone or just 1 through 5 switching. But we have the sample size that this group is just not good enough together, and they briefly played 1 minute in the middle of the quarter. They were outscored. They gave up an offensive rebound for a Jonathan Isaac dunk. I think that might have been. I'm forgetting. I'm mixing up a couple of plays here, but they gave up an offensive rebound in a basket, and then the game's tied. They give up the 2 points. Then they come back in. They're actually, I believe, it was tied again, or they actually might have been up. I think they were up 1, and then they got outscored by 2 over the final 3 minutes. So I've said it before. I will say it again. I think this lineup needs to be punted into the sun. And yes, tonight was a small sample size, but it has a -20 net rating on the season. I don't get why it continues to get the runway that it does. And JJ had kind of retired it and dusted it off tonight. But again, I don't like. I think one of the things we've seen with that group in particular, the Lakers don't get to the rim a lot and they don't get to the free throw line a lot. And the offense, and part of this is a crunch time thing, but the offense really bogs down and it becomes a lot of jump shooting. And I think we saw that in general down the stretch from this team there was not a lot of great stuff at the rim. LeBron got the 1 back cut, right? Outside of that, it was Luka hitting a couple jumpers, Rui hitting a jumper, Austin, and just a lot of the offense down the stretch was jump shot, not touching the paint, not getting to the rim. And part of that, I think, is that lineup is just a bit. If I was to compare that lineup to a theoretical being, it's like a Snorlax. It's very lackadaisical. And I would like to see more verve for those who are taking a shot every time I say that word. Takeaway number 2 is we got an update on Jaxsn Hayes. He is day-to-day. So he was out with the ankle sprain day-to-day, and JJ said he expects him back at some point this week. So the Lakers are about to go on a tough stretch here where they play Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, have a weekend back-to-back, 3 games in 4 nights. Now, fortunately for them, the Sunday game is against Sacramento at home, but that is sometimes having the easiest game as the last game makes that last game a bit tougher. But Jaxsn is day-to-day, expected back by the end of the week. We have heard these things before. I'm going to take it at face value, but we have heard players are day-to-day, expected back by the end of the week before, and doesn't always pan out that way. And then takeaway number 3, quick one on Lon Rosen. So Lon Rosen, the new president of business operations for the Lakers, spoke with the beat writers before the game. And I think the 2 biggest takeaways from that were he said that Rob Pelinka is going to be empowered and in charge of leading the front office moving forward. And nothing has changed. They want Rob to be Rob, and he's going to be advising with Mark Walter and Friedman and his last name always gives me problems, but Zadie or I think that's how you say it. There's gonna be a little council there with the top of the front office, but Rob is still in charge. Rob is making the primary decisions, and I know it's been a hot button topic for a lot of fans recently, and they have wanted Rob out. But I continue to say, they're saying it publicly. I've also said I've heard it behind the scenes. I don't think that is changing anytime soon. Maybe if things go south this summer and next season is a disappointing year, it's a different conversation in 2027. But for right now and for the foreseeable future, Rob is in charge, and he's going to be leading the building out of the front office. But my understanding is it's building out underneath him, not above him. And then the second thing that I found interesting was that Magic Johnson is going to be not part of day-to-day operations. He made that clear. Lon made that clear, but he is going to have a voice, and there is going to be another chef in the kitchen another cook in the kitchen to a degree. So that will be interesting. The Lakers are adding more at times they've been a bit fractured in terms of just so many competing voices with the decision-making process. And they have cleared some of that. And, they moved on from the Bus brothers. They moved on from Tim Harris, but they are bringing in now all the Dodgers guys, which I think is clearly a positive. But they will be obviously bolstering the front office, and then now Magic will have some sort of seat at the table. So it is going to be interesting how the new structure functions, and just how much of the Dodgers' success they can replicate. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A here. Appreciate the patience. First one from the Lakers. Yo, what's with the Kawhi noise lately? LAL. Yeah, I mean, different. I hear different things in terms of what's going to happen with the whole aspiration situation, and how punitive that potential punishment is going to be. I don't know what to believe. I kind of feel like I want to see the actual, like, what they find or what they determine is punishable, and what the actual punishment is. But I mean, I guess there's technically a pathway to, I've seen, there's been different reports out there as well. And someone reported like that Kawhi would have to be traded. And there's been reports and buzz about would his contract be voided. And obviously in either scenario, if Kawhi is forced to be traded or his contract is voided and he's a free agent, no one has more cap space this summer than the Lakers. So the Lakers are in a prime position. And he also, of course, like, LA native, living in LA for the past 6 years. I don't know if he'd want to relocate necessarily, or I would assume would not want to relocate. So that could put the Lakers in position to acquire him or sign him. I want to tread lightly with this, right? There's just a lot we don't know about this situation still, and I think we'll have a clearer picture once the investigation is concluded, and once we have a sense of the punishment. So right now, I think a lot of this is just noise and chatter. I'm not reading too much into it. Now, again, if there is some sort of punishment where he is forced to be traded, or his contract is voided and he's a free agent, either one of those scenarios. Now, I think if he's forced to be traded, I still think the Clippers and the Lakers and the bad blood there, they have the bad blood of just like two teams in the same city, but you have had, remember the Genie emails that leaked where she was talking about Bomber, and I think she was calling him Balls or something like that, Balls with a Z. So like there's been a little bad blood there, I would say, but between the ownerships, and like I don't think it's two franchises that like love each other. And then also, the Lakers still have egg on their face from the Zubats trade with the Clippers. So I don't think the Clippers would love trading Kawhi to the Lakers. And at that point, if you're forced to trade him, I think the league's not going to be like, you have to trade him to the Lakers, you have to trade him to Team X. It's going to be, all right, let's get into a bidding war here. Now, the Lakers can bid high. They have the 3 picks and they have the cap space. So maybe that's enough to entice the Clippers, depending on what that potential trade package looks like. But for now, I think it's just noise. And until we have clarity on what the potential punishment is going to be, I think it's nothing more than that. Pinty23, thank you for the super chat. LeBron had 3.5 seconds to drive or take an easy one. Well, yeah, look, we could go through the Zapruder film and break down, and like that's fair. I think to be honest, I don't think, my interpretation rewatching it, I don't think LeBron was anticipating getting the pass. And I think especially like just, when you go back, you see how much time there was, but in the moment, and I don't know if, for anyone who's played competitive basketball or competitive sports with some sort of game clock or shot clock, like it was 5 point something seconds. That's like a long time, but when you're in the moment, and especially with like Luka gets the ball, he looks up, then he holds it for a second, then they converge on him, then he starts to look for who should I pass it to, sees LeBron, passes it to him. Like that does happen in like a 2.5 second span there, but you don't really know that. And it's a tough thing. Like what you don't want to happen is you look up at the scoreboard or the shot clock and there's like a second left and all of a sudden you have to throw something up, which is basically what happened anyway. So my assumption based on rewatching the ending was LeBron did not have a good sense. LeBron was not expecting the ball, and LeBron did not have a good sense of how much time was left, because he basically just turned into pirouetting into that final shot. So hindsight's 2020. I do put that more on Luka than on LeBron in terms of just not taking the initial shot. Like, the play was for Luka. He had an opening. He did not take the shot. Now, I think the screen could have been maybe a little bit lower, and Luka curling into a little bit of a closer three. So we could also quibble with that in terms of the execution there with that. But I think there's other things you could put on LeBron. Like, again, I thought LeBron messed up with the Bane play. I thought he could have done a better job boxing out with the Paolo jumper as well. But like, I'm not going to put that on LeBron. Jay, thank you for the super chats. Excuse me. Winners want the ball in their hands at the end of the game. Luka froze. It's that simple. Tough scenes. On nights when Braun and Ayton are combining for 42 points on 13 and 11 field goal attempts, LA just has to win those 67% combined, but Luka AR score 40 on 40 field goal attempts, 35%. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with the first point. Froze. I mean, I'm seeing people say Luka choked, Luka froze. Like, I think he hesitated, and you could call that freezing. But I think we have enough of a sample size on Luka where there are things you could criticize Luka about. Like, you might not like the aesthetics of his game. You might not like some of the complaining to officials, some of the grifting at times, some of the shot selection, the defense, whatever. You pick your thing you want to criticize him. Again, it's been open season the last 2 weeks. But I don't think fear of the moment or fear of taking the last shot is something that you have to worry about with Luka. I refuse to believe that. I've seen him make game-winning shots, take game-winning shots. We've seen it with the Lakers. Like, I will not go that far. And I know you're not necessarily, like, you're not saying he's not clutch or something like that, but I've seen that notion out there. So I do want to push back against that and make that clear that, like, was that his finest moment? No. Should he have taken the shot? Yes. Do I think he would have taken the shot if given a second opportunity, or if you could go back in time, replay it? Yes, I think he would, but he didn't. It was a mistake. You move on. They lost the game. I think, again, like, this was a game, in my opinion, LA should have probably won by 10 or 12. And this was a lot of, like, the unseriousness, the mistakes, the lack of execution late, the lack of capitalizing on, like, the momentum when they had a couple double-digit runs. I think there's far bigger issues than Luka not taking the last. Like, we always remember the final play. And yes, it was a mistake. I'm not denying that. But there are a lot of, I think there are several reasons why the Lakers lost, and, like, several things that consistently went against them in this game that ultimately led to them losing. But to your point, yeah, I mean, LeBron and Ayton were very efficient. They were awesome offensively, and from a scoring perspective, again, with LeBron, the turnovers. But yeah, Luka and Austin were not efficient tonight, and that's coming off of, again, those two not being efficient against Boston. Mosier, thank you for the super chat. Why is Austin screening and put in the corner? So interestingly, last question for those who watched the JJ presser, you already saw this, but for those who hadn't, last question, he gets asked about Austin in the first half and, like, what he thought about, just, was it like a rough half, or, was he just out of rhythm, or like what? And JJ just said yes. I think he might have said, like, a couple of other words, echoing what the reporter had asked in the question. But he, paraphrasing, like, he functionally said yes. He agreed with the premise of the question, but did not expound upon it at all. Did not go into the why of the question. And that was it. It was his mic drop moment. And JJ loves a good mic drop moment. So yeah, I mean, it's been pretty weird the last couple of games where it feels like Austin has been phased out of the offense to a degree. and has been more of a distant third option. Now, technically tonight he took the second most shots, so he did, especially in that second half, start to get going. And again, 0 for 5 in the first half, 6 for 11 in the second half. Much better second half performance. But I would say, especially like including the 4 quarters of the Boston game with the 2 quarters of the first half. I mean, he went 4 for 10 against Boston. He went 4 for 15 over those 6 quarters. But I would also argue Austin only attempting 0 free throws in the first half of tonight. So he went 6 for 7 in the Boston game. But Austin having a 6-quarter stretch where he only attempts 15 shots. That's not even 3 shots a quarter. And then also only 7 free throw attempts. That just is uncharacteristic and continues this trend of him, I would say, somewhere between like struggling and underwhelming against the league's best defenses, against the league's most athletic and long, strong, physical perimeter players. It's concerning. There's no way around it. But I also think the way the Lakers are using him. I mean, one thing I talked about with the Clippers game is that I think Luka's going to do a lot of scoring, a lot of passing, right? Like Luka is the apex number one option, one of the most talented offensive players of all time. And he's in his prime. You're expecting the 30 plus points and the 8 plus assists from Luka every single night. And he's going to have a certain amount of usage in terms of scoring and passing. But as you split and distribute the usage across the rest of the roster, and specifically with the stars, I think we've seen Austin is better at creating a shot than LeBron is at this stage of LeBron's career. But LeBron is a real weapon out of the post, and with attacking mismatches in the post and just posting up in general, LeBron can dissect the floor and pass out of the post and also be a real scoring threat because LeBron is not really breaking people down off the dribble. He's not attacking downhill like that as consistently as even last year. And so he's doing a lot more of his damage as a screener and roller or out of the post. Whereas Austin is more so that ISO guy, that pick and roll guy, or playing off ball, attacking some of the gaps, weak side. And so I think that the Lakers' best course of action offensively is going to be Austin as more of a scorer and LeBron as more of a facilitator and playmaker. And again, that does not mean Austin does not facilitate or playmake at all. That does not mean LeBron does not score at all. But I think if we're like talking about the realistic like average night for these guys, I think Luka's up there with his averages, let's just say 32 and 9, right? But I think, and LeBron, because Luka's been pretty stable regardless of who's been in and out of the lineup. Like Luka kind of puts up his numbers for the most part every single night, or it kind of averages out to that, right? With LeBron and Luka, there's been a bigger fluctuation of those guys with all three versus those guys by themselves, or those guys with just Luka. So I think we're still kind of figuring out the hierarchy between LeBron and Austin, but I think a good Austin night or like I would say like 23 to 24 points and like 4 to 5 assists. I think that's like the sweet spot for Austin of being more of a scorer, less of a passer, and that leans more into his strengths. Whereas with LeBron, I think it's more the inverse of LeBron, more of like a 20 to 22 point a night guy. So still all three guys hitting 23 plus, but then LeBron being more in like the 8 to 10 assist range and really taking on, like, he and Luka combining for 80% of the Lakers assists or something like that, 70 to 80%. I think that's a more appropriate and like realistic deployment with LeBron and Austin. I think, again, and we saw it against the Clippers, like Austin coming off flare screens, curling around pin downs and different give and go actions. And I thought he was a very effective off-ball weapon. So they did that against the Clippers. Then they kind of went away from that against the Celtics and the Magic. And to your point, it's just been a lot more Austin off the ball, and him more as a decoy. And they have funneled things more through LeBron. I get it. I think the Boston one made a little bit more sense because Boston is actually on the smaller side outside of their fives. They play like they have some big wings, but they're not as big as Orlando. Whereas Orlando, I actually thought Austin, especially in that second half, like him attacking off the dribble and finding the crevices in the defense, that was something that I thought they could have done a better job of in the first half. So I don't know the why, to be completely honest. I think that's something that the Lakers have to figure out. And this is just, honestly, I think more so a symptom of their offense. And they go through these weird offense. Like, I thought the defense was overall underwhelming tonight, but like the offense was arguably even worse. And the offense has been in a bad place, or not a bad is rough. I mean, it was bad against the Celtics, but like it's been in a overall underwhelming spot for a little bit here. And I'm starting to like the Lakers are trending up defensively, like slightly overall, like over a larger sample size here, but they're also trending down offensively, and they're almost going to get to a place where they're like 15th offensively and 20th defensively, and that's just not a spot you want to be in. Chuck Dangler, aka Fang Charlie, sup brate, hope you're doing okay, dude. I've been on Chinese New Year break and I chose today to get back into the show. Geez, today's show, ball don't lie though. I'm still looking forward to your email. Thanks. Yes, I did respond, so make sure you check that out. So I'm ready to do our Q&A whenever you send me the questions. But yeah, I mean, the basketball, like I will say that the basketball gods have been very fortunate to, or they benefited the Lakers a lot in crunch time, where a lot of the balls bounce their way. And when things are on the ropes, the Lakers, like some of it's never completely black and white. Like some of it's execution, some of it's just sometimes good luck, fortune, whatever. Tonight was not one of those nights, but it has more often gone in their favor than not. But appreciate you and looking forward to our Q&A. Reeves, strongest soldier, running the Rui lineup in the fourth is fireable, in my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but I think it was a mind-melting decision that I vehemently disagree with and do not understand. So, yeah, I won't go that far, but I understand the frustration. Princess Kelly, I do not see a super chat, so drop your question in the chat and I will respond to it. The next one from BT Kingsley. I want Claxton and Robert Williams. I would take those guys as well. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Claxton. I would say he's probably number 2 for me among like the realistic gettable centers. Like I'd rather have him than Jared Allen. I think he's better than Jared Allen. He's also on a better contract than Jared Allen. But I mean, they're relatively close. I don't love the number that Jared Allen is on. And Claxton, I believe his contract goes out a bit longer. So you have like longer term, and it's a descending contract, which I like. Robert Williams, I'm a fan of. I mean, I think in this mold, you would want a third center who's a bit more of a bruiser and physical type. Whereas like you got the defense, the rim protection, some versatility, switchability here, the rebounding, the finishing, the lob threats, like you got all that. I would say not this player in particular, but like sort of like a Jonas Valanciunas type, or just a more, I would want like a 7 foot, 250 pound plus alternative here that is not like an every night player. But remember, like Robert Williams has an extensive injury history. So I don't know if you could rely on him as like a full-time rotation guy. So like Robert Williams insurance, but also just insurance against the biggest teams, because Claxton and Williams, I think if there's a collective, I mean, they're obviously like relatively limited skill wise, but they fit the job description of what you want around Luka. I think the one thing is like just not enough strength and mass and like power So that would be something that if you could find a big man who fit that mold, I would like that. But yeah, I like both those. Next one from Pinty23. Why is Kennard not on the court the last play? Good question. That really good question. I think part of it is they're not going to. I mean, they're in a tough spot with the big three because I think from a political perspective, it's just tough to bench them. Now, I think in that situation, it's. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's easy to say like bench one of them, but I think with DA, they wanted DA as a screener and as a slip option where if they overcommitted to Luka, DA could slip out and rim run and potentially get a dunk like he did a little bit earlier in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, I would put Kennard over Rui, I guess, if you had to pick between those two for a last second shot. But you could also have had a Rui, I guess, in the DA role, even though DA is a better screener than Rui. So for what they wanted to run, I guess I kind of get it. But yeah, I mean, Kennard he could be a decoy, and his gravity is to the extent that I think he's a guy you should situationally sub in. And I think that's something that JJ could do a better job of. Savage, thank you for the super chat. The fact JJ subbed out AR and Braun when they were hot in the final 5 minutes for that dog meat lineup tells me everything I need to know. Yeah, I think he botched that a bit. So to your point, like Austin, I think both of his field goals were in that first half of the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I forget when the second one was. It was somewhere close to that middle portion. Might have been a little bit before, a little bit after. I don't remember off the top of my head. And then LeBron had a couple of plays before eventually that back cut for the dunk off the ATO or baseline out of bounds. Yeah, I mean he subbed in to this point. He subbed in Jake and Luke, and I mean Jake hit the big three, and I don't know. I didn't love that. I mean, again, though, the alternative was go with the OG starters. I didn't love that either. So I really didn't love the closing rotation and lineups in the fourth quarter in general. But this was another part of it that I did not like. Like he has been pulling LeBron somewhere between the 7 and 5 minute mark, and he'll pull LeBron for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then bring him back in. But they brought them in super late. It was like 3:40 or something like that when he brought them in, and I didn't agree with that. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. Divide and conquer. Either Braun or AR start from bench. The games Braun plus Luka, AR plus Rui. We had both O and D. I mean, if we're being completely honest, based on the numbers, it would be LeBron coming off the bench. Like I know a lot of people advocate for Austin coming off the bench, but Austin as a pair, as a base pairing, Austin and Luka are almost a plus 20 net rating. Luka and LeBron are almost a -4 net rating. That is a giant discrepancy between those two numbers. Now, there's a bit of a sample size issue there, but we have a growing sample size with Luka and LeBron where the Lakers have basically been neutral to negative in most of their minutes, and they have crushed it. Last year with Luka and Austin, they were plus 13 points per 100 possessions. So they have like those two together, and that's, let me be clear, those two without LeBron, not those two in general, but those two without LeBron crushed it last year. They're crushing it this year. That continues to give me the optimism for Luka and Austin moving forward, but certainly the big three together, it has not worked. So if this is a complete meritocracy and it's just about performance and which combinations have worked, I do think it would be Luka and Austin starting with LeBron coming off the bench, not the bunch. However, LeBron is LeBron. And I made this point on, I believe it was on Lakers Collective we got a super chat about LeBron coming off the bench. And it was like, you would never ask Michael Jordan to come off the bench. You would never ask Kobe Bryant to come off the bench. You're not going to ask LeBron James to come off the bench. And he's not going to come off the bench. Like that's just it's not in reality. So I guess from that perspective, it would be Austin, but then you are benching Austin and potentially upsetting, isolating him going into his contract situation. And I just don't know if that, with how the Lakers have billed him and treated him and passed on trading him in so many different trades, I don't see that being tenable either. So I think they're going to continue to start the big three. I just think they have to limit their minutes to beginning of first quarter, beginning of third quarter, maybe end of second quarter if they're playing well, and then they're going to close with them. But it's a problem they're going to have to figure out, because regardless of, even if they stagger them, even if they bring one of them off the bench, they're going to play together just based on if we get to the playoffs and all three of those guys are going to be in the high 30s, if not, like Luka will probably be 40 to 42. And I think Austin will be 38 to 40. And I think LeBron will also probably be 37, 38, 39, maybe even 40. So if let's just say all three are playing 40 minutes or at least 38, there's almost no way to construct a rotation where they're not at least playing like 10, 12 minutes together. And they've been pretty, like, with how bad they've been in the 10 to 12 minutes, that's going to hurt you if you don't figure that out. So I do agree they could do a better job staggering them, and there maybe is an alternate universe where you could bring one of them off the bench, but I don't see it happening. I don't think they're going to make that change. And even if you did make that change, you're going to end up playing them basically the same amount of minutes. So they're going to end up playing 10 to 15 minutes together anyway. And that's going to be a problem anyway. Like maybe a smaller problem, but still a problem. Jay, thank you for the super chat. AR gets no whistle anymore either. It's insane. I would say, honestly, that, I mean, Luka still gets a whistle, but Luka hasn't gotten the same whistle recently. And I would agree with Austin. And I don't know if the NBA has decided to cut back. We saw that, I think it was last year. I forget it was last year, the year before, where they had, and I think eventually, like, there was some confirmation that they had talked about it. But I think the NBA is getting to the point of the season where they start to cut back on the fouls a bit. And I also think, to be completely honest, the Lakers do themselves no favors with how much they complain to the refs. Like, I would say, I mean, if you put yourself in a ref's shoes and you have Luka and Austin and JJ and Marcus and LeBron and half the rotation basically complaining after like a bunch of, like, I don't want to say every shot attempt, because I don't believe in, like, that's not true, and I don't want to continue to perpetuate that notion, but like, they do complain a lot. They complain a lot. I would say objectively they complain more than the average team. Their stars complain more than the average stars, and I would not want to ref them. And refs are humans. They're supposed to be objective. They're supposed to be these cyborgs, but like, there are, I mean, just think about Scott Foster and Chris Paul and how much beef there was there, and just how many times there was questionable calls or non-calls with Scott Foster and Chris Paul, or, Scott Foster reffing Chris Paul games. It's like, refs are humans. And if you're constantly complaining to them, they're going to just start tuning you out. And I think it has felt like the refs have, like, I understand why fans have been upset with the refs lately. I think, again, in totality, the Lakers have come out on the better side for the most part, but recently it has felt like there's been a shift against the Lakers a little bit in terms of some of the calls that they were getting earlier in the season. So I don't know if that's a league-wide mandate. I don't know if that's a Lakers just annoyance from the refs, but they got to, like, all you could do is adapt and adjust, right? Like, you can't, you could complain to the league, you could send them clips and stuff, but like, ultimately it doesn't matter. If it's a league-wide mandate, then that just is what it is. If it's a Lakers annoyance, then you got to stop being as annoying. You got to stop being as difficult to ref. So I think that they got to figure that out. Sarah Talks Ball, thank you for the super chat. Upsetting loss, need to go 4-0 the next 4 games. You see that happening. Nice catching up at halftime before the light went out of my eyes. Sarah was not the person I talked to that said they were going to walk into traffic, but I would not be surprised if she feels that way as well. So based on their track record, I think I agree. I think they should go 4-0. Will they go 4-0? I think they beat Phoenix, Sacramento. So I think they beat Sacramento and New Orleans for sure. I think one of the two Phoenix and Golden State games is going to be a little tricky on the road. I kind of feel like it's the Golden State game. Like they just beat Denver at home. They just had a competitive game with the Lakers, a couple weeks ago. I could see the Golden State one being like sneakily droppable. It's also a 5:30 ABC game. Lakers are very hit and miss with their national TV games. So that's the one that scares me, I guess, the most. I think Phoenix, they'll take care of them. No Booker, no Brooks. With Golden State, no Curry. But I'll say they go 4-0, but I don't feel great about it. I'm kind of in between 3-1 and losing to Golden State and going 4-0. But to your point, after that, they go on a mad dash. They got Denver and Indiana back to back. So, okay, Indiana, whatever. But then New York, Minnesota, Chicago, Denver. So Indiana and Chicago, very winnable. Denver twice, New York and Minnesota, those are real tests. Then they go out on the road at Houston twice, Miami, Orlando, Detroit, Indiana. The only gimme there is Indiana. Even then, Indiana's been like pesky. They still got the finals DNA. They've beaten some good teams. But Houston twice. I mean, Miami's no picnic. Orlando just beat the Lakers and could have Franz and Suggs back by then. Detroit is Detroit. So like that's a pretty tough 6-game road trip to close out March. Then you got a little bit of a respite there with Brooklyn and Washington, but then you go Cleveland, OKC, Dallas, OKC, Golden State, Phoenix, Utah. Those are like Golden State and Phoenix are both going to be jockeying for that 7-8 positioning theoretically at that point, or potentially even trying to stave off the Clippers. So like those are going to be two big games. The Utah game, Utah will tank and the Lakers will win. But yeah, I mean, some pretty tough games. Like some easy Utah, Dallas, Brooklyn, Washington, Chicago, Indiana, Sacramento, New Orleans. Like you could probably pencil in 7 or 8 of these games as basically wins for the Lakers, but the other, I mean, based on their track record against the best teams in the league, a lot of these other ones are going to be losses or likely losses. Chuck Dangler says, thank you for the super chat. My bad brote. Somehow my mail got effed up. I just want to check my mailbox. Didn't see your mail. Can you check again? Thanks, man. Yes, I will double check that. Appreciate you. Sarah Talks Ball, thank you for the super chat. Upside. Oh, no, this is the same one. Okay. Appreciate you, Sarah. And then Reeve Strongest Soldier, thank you for the super chat. Feels like LeBron has vampired Austin's role at this point. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what I was alluding to. I don't know how intentional that is versus unintentional, but it has felt like LeBron has been more of the second option, and he's LeBron, so I understand it, but I do think in terms of like them being both at their peak, I think LeBron's peak has been more of like all-star level, like really good player. Austin's peak earlier in the season was like people were talking about him as a second team All-NBA guy, and that obviously did not sustain. But I just think in the big picture of the season, I think Austin has been the better player, but certainly not recently, right? And so I think LeBron has surpassed him more recently. But I think if we look at the full scope of the season, I think it's been close overall, but I do think Austin's highs have been higher. But I mean, on season, Austin's averaging 3 more points per game. They're actually really close in rebounding. Austin's only averaging 0.6 rebounds less than LeBron, which is pretty crazy. But LeBron 1.4 more assists. But effective field goal percentage, Austin is shooting 5% higher. 2-point percentage, he's 4% higher. 3-point percentage, he's 7% higher. Overall, he's a full percentage point above LeBron in field goal percentage. So like Austin has scored more and been more efficient in every regard. Every, threes, twos, effective field goal, true shooting, overall field goal, points. And so, but again, to my earlier point, LeBron is a better passer, has been the better passer, and I would like to see the Lakers go to that weapon a little bit more and rely more on Austin as like a shot creator. But I mean, part of this was also like Austin was on a minutes restriction going into the All-Star break. He was not playing he was coming off the bench. He wasn't at his full minutes. And even these last couple games, he's been a little bit lower than normal minutes wise. So JJ said he's off the minutes restriction. I don't really believe that, but he's trending in the right. I mean, I guess tonight he played 35, so it's basically close to maybe he's officially off of it. This is a good point from Rainy Dust. Honestly, we shouldn't be comparing Luka, LeBron, and AR because the role players aren't worth a bag of chips. And look, I'm not going to go that far and say they're not worth a bag of chips, but I would say in general, there's been a lot of infighting, a lot of finger pointing and blaming among the various camps of if you're a Luka fan, if you're a LeBron fan, if you're an AR fan. I get it. And I think collectively, those three, especially the last couple games, like they were not good against Boston collectively. They were not good tonight collectively as a group, or not as good as they should have been against Orlando. But there's still like any game that the Lakers are like close in, or even in the blowouts, it's like there's still a baseline level of production and play that the big three, or these three players, because I know some people don't like the big three moniker or whatever, like these three are carrying a massive load that the supporting cast has been, I would say, a bigger issue lately. Like there's been, I mean, it just continues to be no one is reliable as a two-way player. Some of the guys like Luke and Rui are not getting threes created for them. Now that's partly on the big three, also partly on the coaching, but like, I mean, like those guys aren't even getting the opportunities, and like DA has been MIA for a while. Vando just kind of depends on the night what you're getting from him offensively. Same thing with Marcus. Same thing with Jake. I don't know. It's just I think a lot of people are trying to like put the primary blame on one of the stars or one of the three best players when they all are to blame to a degree. Like none of them have been perfect recently, but I think a lot of this is on the supporting cast, and that's not even necessarily like on the supporting cast. I actually think it's more of on the front office and the roster that they constructed. But the supporting cast has been just as underwhelming, if not worse. OMG, and just as a heads up, it is pretty late already. It's 1:15 a.m. Pacific time, so going to be going until the 1:30 mark, so about 7 more minutes here. OMG, hey Jovan, do you trust JJ and his coaching staff? Like, I don't like what is the identity of our offense other than ISO ball and brawn and post, and let them do things Austin has been taken from the offense. Yes, I still trust the coaching staff, but I think we have a growing sample size that I'm a bit concerned with in terms of I think this group has underperformed offensively both last year and this year. And remember, even last year, post Luka, they were actually better defensively than offensively. And that, this year they've obviously been better offensively than defensively, but I did not see a universe in which this group was outside the top 10 offensively. And like they've been outside the top 10 for a good chunk of the season. I mean, they're as of right now, they're outside the top 10, but like, even if you kind of separated it into like 10 to 15 game increments up to this point, there's been too many pockets of the season where they're not a top 10 offense. And to have, I still will double and triple down on like, they have the most individually skilled and talented and gifted offensive trio in the NBA. I don't think there's an offensive trio that is close. Now, are there offensive trios that fit better? Clearly. Are there offensive trios that are greater than the sum of their parts compared to the Lakers? 100%. But in terms of just raw skill and talent, like no one is touching that top three. That is their superpower. That is their strength. That is the biggest reason why they have been able to win the amount of games they've won, despite having a negative point differential, negative net rating, has been because of straight up like the individual brilliance of Luka and Austin and LeBron. And each one of those guys has had, I mean, of course, like primarily Luka, but Austin has had the big games where he's carried the offense. LeBron has had big games. He's carried the offense. Like they've each had their moments, and collectively that has been the biggest reason for the Lakers' success, we'll say. But to this point, there's been far too much freelancing and iso ball, and when LA plays switching schemes and when they play drop schemes, they just do not have great counters against those coverages, and it devolves into a lot of iso ball, a lot of jump shots, a lot of late shot clock possessions. Sometimes those turn into the grenades that you'll see. Luka has the ball. It'll be 4 seconds left. He'll drive and kick, but like the player's catching the ball with 2 seconds left. Same thing with LeBron, maybe out of the post or whatever. It's like they're way too late into the shot clock and just not enough pace. So part of that, I think, is on like Luka and LeBron have tended to be on slower teams. They've never been like the most up-tempo, fast-paced guys in terms of their team's average pace as primary ball handlers. I think that actually leans more into like Austin's strengths, but part of it's certainly on the coaching staff and the system that they're running, or sometimes the system that they're not running. And it's undeniable that the offense has underachieved. Like that's been one of the most disappointing parts of the season. Next one from Keon, I almost called you Keon Clark for those who remember Keon Clark, the basketball player. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. If we can get 2 starting 3-and-D players this summer next to Luka and AR and play a center, therefore no starter spot for Braun, yet Braun willing to stay one more. Can we tell Braun to come off the bench? Or do you think Braun would leave? I do not see a scenario in which LeBron James ever comes off the bench. Could be wrong on that, but I just, again, if you think about, I mean, I mentioned a couple guys, but there are several guys. I mean, some guy like kind of depends on, but like even thinking about like a guy like Tim Duncan, right? Like there's just certain, I think once you reach a certain status, we've seen some great players like, you know, Dirk or KG and like some of these guys kind of get phased into smaller roles later in their career when they're on their last legs. I would argue LeBron has a lot more juice left than that. Like for as much as people might want to criticize or nitpick or whatever with LeBron, like you compare him to a lot of the greats at this. I mean, no one has been to this stage of their career because no one's played a 23rd season, but just even into like their early 40s or like their last season or two, even if you compare people's like final season or two, whatever, LeBron's in a different stratosphere than basically any superstar we've seen up to this point. Like, I think even comparing him to Wizards Jordan, I don't think they're close. So I say all that to say, I just don't see a world in which he comes off the bench. So I think if they somehow bring him back, it would be as a starter. Otherwise, it's either him potentially retiring or going elsewhere. But I like your idea of 2 3-and-D wings and a center. I think that would be a great offseason. Emmy says that with the Lakers modeling their front office like the Dodgers, we could expect Rob to know what players should fit with this team next season, right? I think that's a good goal. That's a good hope for the summer. I would say one thing that Rob mentioned when he spoke last week to the media was that he wanted to model the Dodgers farm system with some of the drafting and some of the approach. So I think that if you can identify, I think a big thing with drafting and identifying young talent and just talent in general is having an ethos, having a DNA, having a culture, having something that you believe in. And you're never going to go 100%. You're never going to have a roster where all 15 guys, like, I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle, or sometimes you really have the perfect foresight and can build it that way. But like it's going to be tough to go 15 out of 15, 14 out of 14, whatever, but can you go 12 out of 14? I think that's where like the best GMs, the best front offices get pretty close to nailing it. And it's more so about, sometimes it's not as much about talent and skill and production as it is about fit and culture. And you just look at, I look at Boston and what they've been able to do. And that should be plenty of motivation for the Lakers of like, Boston was supposed to be having a down year. Like we talk about like gap year, transition year for the Lakers, whatever. That was what Boston was supposed to have. And a lot of people thought it was going to go the way Indiana has gone, but Boston has identified, they draft a guy like Hugo Gonzalez and they just have all these like Shireman and Kada and they just have this army of scrappy role players who buy into the culture, buy into what Boston's trying to do. They run their system. They are make very few mistakes, and it's just a machine. And the Lakers don't have that, clearly. And you could put some of that on the injuries. That just brings a little hollow to me at some point. Like the Lakers have annually used injuries as an excuse for lack of continuity. And I think at some point it becomes an excuse, and it has to be about, okay, well, then you need to have a better back end of the roster, and those guys need to be ready to step in. And the fact that you don't have a better back end of your roster and those guys are not ready to step in, that's an indictment on you. So, I think it should ideally be much better players and fit next season, but it's gonna, like, there's gonna have to be some real growth and like looking internally. Ken Carter, Jovan, how come the media couldn't ask Rob more hard-hitting questions? He came off too calm, like he just hit the bong. No b-ball philosophy questions. Need for 3-and-D rim protectors, just softball stuff. So I'm putting me in a little bit of a tough position here, but all I will say with this is I was not there. I was not invited to this press conference. I was not invited to the Lon Rosen press conference. It was the beat writers only, and so Rob, when the Lakers have not done stuff or done small stuff, Rob has done beat writers only press conferences. So like last year, for example, he did that right after the Mark Williams. It was like he did the Luka press conference, but that was more so all about Luka. Then right after the Mark Williams trade, he did a small press conference with the beat writers. And, so he's done stuff like that before. So I don't take it personally that I wasn't there, but like, I would say I've been one of the people who has asked some of these hard-hitting questions and held the feet to the fire a little bit. That did not happen in this last press conference, so I wasn't there, so you can't blame me for it. But yeah, I would say that the questions were a little bit could have been a little bit more pushback on the offseason plan, I would say. Ronnie says, do you think running from the backcourt drawn up JJ last play through Luka off happened twice? Potentially. One other thing with it, and I'm forgetting if it was the first one or the second one. I think it might have been the first one, but I'm kind of blanking here as we reach the late hours of the morning. But they had also like started the play. I'm blanking which one it was, but they had started the play and they ran like before the ref even whistled and started the inbounds clock. So it was like this weird thing where it was actually a longer inbounds, and I felt like it allowed Orlando to see, like, the Lakers ran to their spots, and then it was just basically like a basic situation at that point, and in like a normal inbounds situation. So I felt like they started the play a little bit too early. Like, it's supposed to be blow the whistle, start the clock, then you go. Then it's more of like you have 5 seconds to do this, but like you're doing it with a certain pace. This was, they ran to their spots, but the inbound had not even started yet, so they couldn't even get the ball if they were open. And that kind of threw off the rhythm of it. So again, I'm forgetting which one. It might have been the last one, but it was one of the last two for sure. All right. I'm going to wrap here, though. Appreciate you guys for rocking with me for over an hour and a half. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I will be back for sure on Thursday. I might be back tomorrow. I posted about a mailbag, so I'm in between doing a Q&A, like a live Q&A, going live, or just doing the mailbag and posting that. So I will let you guys know at some point in the late morning. But appreciate you guys. Shout out to the Late Night Gang, Tali Khalifa, Chuck Dangler, BC, Ken Carter, There Said, Ronnie, Jack, Hans de Leon, Saving Soul, Alex. I got you, Ken Carter. Don't worry. I said your name, but I'll say it twice. But appreciate you guys. I will talk to you all very soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening.